Hello, Internet. My name is Keaton Walker. Um, I wanted to share what I think is wrong with the world and how to fix it, and how I personally fixed that in my own life. Right now, it is currently 8:48 on Thanksgiving Day, 2019, and I was just sitting on the couch after a great day of spending time with my family, and I couldn't get this urge to record this video out of me, so I just figured that I would do it. And what I want to go over is something that happened to me about 8 months ago. So, the beginning of this year, I was completely miserable. Um, and I felt like a victim of the universe. Like, everything I did was just somehow correlated with some higher power that was causing me to take the actions that I wanted to take. And even though I knew on a logical level that that wasn't true, I still believed it, and my daily actions reflected it. And so where I was at this time, I was going to college, and I was in an amazing relationship. So that part of my life was really, really awesome. But I was honestly miserable in college. I didn't like it at all. And the people that were there, just the not the people, but the environment and the work that I was having to do, and I just didn't feel like I was making any progress in my life, and I just wasn't happy with where I was at. But I've grown up in a culture where it's very um, socially accepted to go to college. It's not necessarily pushed. I guess in some ways it's pushed, but it's definitely what most people do, or what it seems like most people do, at least from my perspective. And so I was miserable, but I couldn't figure out why. And so what I did was just continued trying to figure it out every single day. And I would, I'd notice that my depression and just kind of like general feeling of not being happy would go down, or I'd feel happier when I was exercising, when I was eating right, when I did the basic things that you need to do to take care of yourself. So I was doing that, but it's still just deep within myself, there just was something that wasn't right. But I just lived each day kind of still trying to figure out what that was. And it wasn't until I something very important happened to me, or I did something very important, that everything switched for me. So I was in a relationship at this point that I mentioned, and things were going really, really well, and we were thinking about getting engaged. And what happened was that I didn't feel like in my heart that it was time to get engaged. I knew what I wanted, and that was more time in the relationship to be completely sure that it was the right thing. And but after listening to my parents, I was talking to my parents about it. I was talking to the girl that I was in the relationship with about it. I was talking to other friends and people, and just the general advice I was getting was, she is amazing. Like, you can't let this, like, don't pass it up. Like, we want you to get married sooner rather than later. And it just seemed like, again, like the universe was telling me something. Like, you need to get engaged now, or within the next couple months instead of like later down the line, And so we made the decision. We were going to get engaged, and I drove home and talked to my parents, and she was talking to her parents. And after talking to them, I just couldn't get this feeling of anxiety out of my brain. And I remember driving back to college where I lived, and just calling my girlfriend at the time and saying, hey, I feel really anxious about this, and I'm not sure why. And she said the same. I think I'm going to ask my parents some advice tonight. So she did. And then pretty much the next day we were just like, well, she talked to her parents, and her parents were like, well, if you feel like things are rushed and that you're anxious about it, then just keep dating. Nobody said you had to get married, or get married or get engaged right away. And that was really sound advice. And I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, I was like so ashamed of myself. and I couldn't put a finger on why. And I was so up and down in that relationship for like the next 3 weeks to a month. And I couldn't figure out why. And so I was like, hey, I just need a break. I don't want to be up and down. I've done this in past relationships where I'm sure and then I'm not sure. And so we decided to take a break. And I was thinking so hard during that time why I wasn't sure, because I had been so sure just weeks earlier that she was going to be my wife. We're going to be so great together. Like, things were so amazing. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't sure. And then finally it dawned on me that the reason I wasn't sure is because it wasn't my decision. So let me explain what I mean by that. And I'm sure it already makes a little bit of sense, but really it wasn't, it's like, hey, let's get engaged. And then the next day we're like, we feel anxious about the decision, so why not just wait? And that was totally fine. That really wasn't the problem. What the problem was is that this alerted me to the fact that there were bigger problems in my life. And this decision that I'd almost made just because of what everybody else was saying was actually the same pattern that my whole life was following. So I almost made a huge decision, like the biggest life decision anyone makes, based on what others were recommending. Not what I felt in my heart to be true and to be right. And that really, really affected me, because I've had a lot of experiences in my life where I've seen, rushed relationships turn into something that that neither party intended, and I had almost made the same mistake, and it caused me a lot of grief. But I finally realized, during this break that we were taking, me and my girlfriend, that's what was wrong. It wasn't that the relationship was wrong. I wasn't unsure about her. I was unsure about my life. And for the first time ever, my subconscious had been alerted to that, and I knew what I needed to do about it. And the thing that I needed to do in order to be at peace with myself and really be happy was to drop out of college. I knew it. I knew that's what I needed to do. I saw it with more clarity than I'd ever seen. And, my belief system is that God was helping me see that. But, for the first time ever, I had seen clarity at where I wanted to go in my life. And I did it. So a month later, I dropped out of school. I finished the semester, which I just kind of like suffered through it and did as little work as possible. I still haven't checked my grades to see what I got, but I finished the classes, just kind of in case I ever wanted to go back to school, I guess. And I knew I wanted to start a business. I've always wanted to start a business. So I dropped out. I started a business. And within 2 weeks, I closed a client. And within 6 months, now I make about anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 a month in this business that I started. And all from just one decision, one realization that I started to see that my whole life was just a pattern of unintentional decisions. I had just been following the script or the social norms or just whatever everybody else was doing for my whole life. And sure, there were times I was intentional. I was doing things differently than other people. I've always been a little bit of an against the grain person, but what was amazing to me is that everything I was doing, like college, how many hours of my life was college taking up? And I didn't even want to be there. But I didn't have the courage to just put my foot down and say, I know what I want to do, and I know how I want to do it. I didn't have that courage. And until I did that, I was miserable. But once I did it, I wasn't making all the money in the world during those first few weeks, even the first few months. I'm still not. But what changed is that I was actually doing what I wanted to do. instead of doing what other people expected of me. So, in my mind, the biggest problem with the world is that people do not think for themselves. Let me say that again. The biggest problem with the world is that people do not think for themselves. If every single person in this world thought for themselves and really made rational, logical decisions based on what they feel in their heart to be true, based on their moral compass and like actually what they understand to be truth and what they understand to make them happy, I believe that the majority of depression would go away, the majority of anxiety would go away. I know that there are medical conditions, please don't get mad at me for that. But things like me where I was just like, I don't know why I'm depressed. And then once I made a decision where I was actually happy with my life, happy with what I was doing every day, my depression went away. It hasn't been back, hasn't come back. Honestly, for the first time in years, wow, it's really the first time I'm realizing this, that I'm just happy with my life. I'm happy with every single day and how it's going, and I'm striving towards goals that I actually want for myself. So that's the biggest problem. But let's talk about why it happens. And the reason that I see this happening, so I served a mission for my church for 2 years. And during that time, what was really, really hard for me, it wasn't the people that, like, you get people who like slam the door in your face, that yell at you, that just like they call you names, that like have no respect, right? Like, I'm out there trying to do a good thing, talking about Jesus, and these people are like so mean. That didn't bother me though. What bothered me was the people that we talk to and they just say, whatever, sounds nice. And I'm standing in front of them like, this is the most important message you will ever hear in your whole life, and you do not care. That's what I really had a hard time coping with. And I was talking to a member of the church. I served my mission in Washington, D.C., and I was talking to a member of the church about how frustrated I was about this. Like, I just don't know how to help these people that don't want to help themselves, that just don't care. And he said, the problem is we're sleeping, man. We're sleeping. I love the way that he put that. I believe that 80-90% of the world is asleep. They wake up every day, they go to their job, they do everything that they're supposed to do, that society tells them they're supposed to do, but really deep inside, they're just going through the motions. There's a lot of people that would rather be dead than be doing what they're doing, but they don't have the courage to live the life they were born to live, and so they just continue doing everything the same way that they've done it. Or they act on those actions of wanting to end their life. So we're sleeping. There's so many more people that are part of the Walking Dead than we realize. And I think there are a few things that contribute to this. One, social media, and just like the level of distraction that there is in the world. Like, how many times does your phone go off in a day? How many notifications are coming up on your phone? And how many of those things are trying to sell you something? Or just get you to come back to a social media app? You don't owe anything to those people. You don't owe anything to the social media apps. I've deleted almost all of the apps on my phone. I've never been happier. Because I choose what to do with my time, instead of letting my time pass by. So social media and just general distraction, I think that's the number one reason why a lot of people are sleeping. Two is just social norms, like, oh, that's just what you do. You just go to college. Or, oh, that's just what you do. You just get a 9-to-5 job and work it for years and years and years. That's just how it is. For some people, that's actually what they want to do. For most people, I really don't think that's what they actually want to be doing. So how do you wake up? Get off social media, delete the apps, get all notifications off of your phone. Don't let people like call, text, ping, 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 ping. Like that is not what you want in your life. We're never designed for that much stimulation. So just decrease the level of stimulation. Like imagine you're a like a canvas, and somebody's just flinging paint all over the room, like all over a white room, and you're a canvas in that room. Try to make your canvas as small as possible. Like some things are going to come onto you anyway, but some people just make their canvas so big. Like they let people fling all kinds of stuff all over, but let the canvas, or like the amount of time that you're willing to give to outside pressures and people and anything that you don't choose yourself, make that as small as possible, and then create your life outside of that room. You're not a victim of the universe. You create your life, and if you can think for yourself and act for yourself, you'll be happier than you could ever imagine. So wake up by, that's the first thing, is just get rid of all of the everything that is overstimulating you. And then the second thing is just to sit down and think. Just actually think. Put your phone in another room, put it in like put it under lock and key, and go into another room and think about what you actually want to do with your life, and be honest with yourself. And then take action. And I promise you, in a few months from now, in a year from now, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, you're going to look back on that moment as one of the most important. Not on the things that you missed out on because you were sitting in your room thinking about what you actually want out of this life and what you were actually put on this earth to do. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm honestly just a normal guy. I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comments. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to get you to follow any specific life path except the one that you were designed to follow, and the one that you know in your heart is the right one for you. There's literally nothing more important than this.